plants and other organisms for their nutrition. Now, what is the reason why plants can make their own food and how plants make their own food? Again, what is the reason why plants have the ability to produce their own food? And paano nila ginagawa yon? Through what process? What gives plants its ability to produce their own food? Yeah.
Sir, their ability to go through photosynthesis.
Their ability to perform photosynthesis. Okay, tama po yun. So they produce their own food through the process called photosynthesis. Now, paano nakakapag-perform ng photosynthesis ang mga plants? So tama po yung plants can make their own food through the process of photosynthesis, pero paano sila nakakapag-perform ng photosynthesis? Dahil meron silang that gives
Sir,
plant
chloroplast po.
chloroplast, that is correct. So they have chloroplast in their cell. So most of the difference or yung main difference between plants and animals ay nasa cell nila. Nutrition, kung kaya nilang makagalaw, bakit di pwedeng makagalaw, and a lot of their abilities lies in their cell. So to be specific, food making process kaya lang ng plants kasi meron silang chloroplast. Tayo as an animal, wala tayong chloroplast. That's why we can produce our own food, we can perform photosynthesis. So for this week, we will talk about the process of photosynthesis as well as the process of cellular respiration. So lesson number 4, last lesson for General Biology 1. So we're at the chapter 8, Fuels for Life and Power Plant. So this is combination of 2 lessons na. Again, lesson number 4 is about photosynthesis and cellular respiration, the cell and its energy. Now, photosynthesis muna ang pag-usapan natin. So photosynthesis is combination of 2 words. Photo means light, then synthesis means putting together. So generally, the idea of photosynthesis is combining different materials using light energy. That's why it is called photosynthesis. So photosynthesis, it is a process that converts light energy from the sun into chemical energy built in sugar molecules. So somehow, pwede rin natin siyang i-consider na energy transformation, light energy to chemical energy. And this chemical energy is in the form of sugar molecule. To be specific, glucose. So this is a very unique ability. So sino ba namang, diba, yung kakayahan mong mag-convert ng a certain type of energy to another type of energy. Now, for this process, it requires sunlight, to be specific, light energy from the sun. It also needs water and then carbon dioxide from the environment. So these are the requirements. As a result, it will produce or release glucose as the main product and oxygen as the waste product. So requirements are sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, then products are glucose and then oxygen. So photosynthesis are performed by organisms called photoautotrophs. Again, photoautotrophs, not just autotrophs. So photoautotrophs, these are organisms that uses light energy to produce organic material. So organic material, example niyan, glucose, kasi nga it is made up of carbon and hydrogen bond. Now, photoautotrophs includes plants. Familiar tayo dyan since pag sinabing photosynthesis, plants agad yung una nating may isip. Pero, remember na hindi lang halaman ang may kakayahang mag-perform ng photosynthesis. Photoautotrophs also includes algae. By the way, mas malaki yung amount na napoproduce ng oxygen ng mga algae compare sa plants. Ang mga algae kasi naninirahan sila sa tubig dagat or sa bodies of water. And mas malaki yung area na sinasakop ng tubig sa planet natin. Somewhat hindi sila napapansin kasi ang main star lagi pag sinabing photosynthesis, plants. Pero mas major contributor sila ng oxygen sa atmosphere, algae. Then we also have bacteria. So there are certain species of bacteria called cyanobacteria that can perform photosynthesis. Then phytoplankton as well. So these four organisms are considered as phototrophs since they can perform photosynthesis. So magfo-focus tayo for our lesson sa plants, photosynthesis in plants. Now, sa isang halaman, nangyayari po ang photosynthesis sa dahon, sa leaves. To be specific, sa middle layer ng leaves. And that layer is called mesophyll. Again, nangyayari po ang photosynthesis sa dahon ng mga halaman, to be specific sa middle layer. Middle layer ng leaves. And that layer is called mesophyll. So yung mga cells na nasa mesophyll ay maraming chloroplast na content. Now, since kailangan ng exchange of material, gas material, between of plants and environment, meron dapat area kung saan mag-enter and mag-exit yung mga gas molecules. So, there's an opening in the surface of the leaf called stomata. So dito magkakaroon ng gas exchange, palitan ng oxygen and carbon dioxide between plants and the environment. So this is how it looks like. So stomata are tiny openings or pores in the plant tissues that allows gas exchange. So yung oxygen dito po nalabas, then dito rin nag-enter yung carbon dioxide as well as water. So stomata are very sensitive openings. So meron pong specialized cell na nagko-control ng opening. Tinatawag po silang guard cells. I believe na-mention ko na to before. So stomata is very sensitive sa sunlight. Pag na-expose sila ng sobrang tagal sa sunlight, mag-open sila. And hindi po yun healthy para sa mga halaman. Since pag tuloy-tuloy na open ang stomata, it will cause dehydration. So that is the reason why most of the plants po ay nakatungo kasi mas maraming stomata doon sa ilalim na parte ng dahon. So pinoprotektahan nila yung stomata nila aside from gravity. Kaya
Sir?
ba't sila nakatungo? Yes.
Paano po bumubukas yung stomata?
Through guard cells. Pag naarawan yung guard cells as well as yung stomata, mag-open mag-initiate ng opening yung guard cells. That's the time na may expose yung stomata. Through sunlight. Pag na-expose sila sa sunlight. Direct sunlight.
Ano po siya, sir? So, ano po ba siya, sir? Yung sunlight yung nagkakos ng reaction para bumukas or parang naghihintay lang siya nagsisense lang siya ng sunlight?
Yeah, yung sunlight mismo yung nagkakos ng reaction para mag-open.
Sir.
Okay. So, that is stomata and the guard cells. Next is chloroplast. So, this is the highlight or main organelle for this process. So, chloroplast is the organelle where photosynthesis occurs. So, chloroplast is a double membrane organelle. So, meron siyang outer membrane and inner membrane. So there's a space between the outer and inner membrane called intermembrane space. So inside the chloroplast, meron siyang mas maliliit na organelles na tinatawag na thylakoids. So nasa loob po ng chloroplast ang thylakoids. So thylakoids, these are small green pancakes somehow na nasa loob ng chloroplast. Magkakapatong sila. So small green pancakes na magkakapatong sa loob ng chloroplast. Now, yung stock ng thylakoids, yung magkakapatong na thylakoids ay tinatawag na granum or granum. That is the singular form. Then, more than one granum is called grana, the plural form. Thylakoids, yung single disc. Yung magkakapatong na thylakoids, that is granum. Then, yung plural form ng granum or yung maraming granum are called grana. So, inside the thylakoids is a green pigment called chlorophyll. So yung green pigment responsible for the green colors of the plants ay nasa loob po ng thylakoids. So si chlorophyll po yung nag-absorb ng light energy. To be specific, it absorbs photons. Remember, light is both particle and wave. So yung particle part ng light po, that is photon, ay yun yung ina-absorb ni chlorophyll. Si chlorophyll nasa loob ng thylakoids. Si thylakoids nasa loob ng chloroplast. Then, aside from thylakoids, meron pong fluid sa loob ng chloroplast. So nakapalibot siya sa mga thylakoids. And that colorless fluid is called stroma. Again, nasa loob po ng chloroplast yung thylakoids. And napapalibutan po yun ng colorless fluid, and that colorless fluid is called stroma. Now,
Sir?
Lorenzo.
Para saan po yung stroma?
Stroma is the site of light-independent reaction. Madidiscuss yan on the latter part of the lesson. So stroma is the site of light independent reaction. For thylakoids, that is the site of light-dependent reaction. Now, the process of photosynthesis can be summarized using an equation. So, to start the equation, so the process requires 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water. So these 2 molecules are the reactants or input of the photosynthetic process. Next, so using light energy, these 2 molecules will be processed to produce glucose, which is the sugar, the main products, plus 6 molecules of oxygen gas. So glucose and molecules are the products or output of the photosynthesis. So all in all, 4 molecules yung involved: carbon dioxide, water, glucose, and oxygen gas. So kailangan ng light energy to process the given reactants to produce the products or the outputs. Now, the process of photosynthesis can be divided into 2 main stages. The stage that captures the energy and the stage that uses the captured energy. So hindi magsa-start yung stage that uses the energy kung hindi mo na makakapture yung energy from the sun, which is the form of light energy. Now, the 2 main stages or phases of photosynthesis are the light-dependent reaction. So this is the stage that captures the energy. Then the other stage is the light-independent reaction. So this is the stage that uses the energy. So si independent reaction, dependent siya kay light-dependent reaction. Hindi magsa-start si light-independent kung hindi pa matatapos si light-dependent reaction. Still have 10 minutes. Now let's talk about the light-dependent reaction first. So light-dependent reaction, its goal is to collect energy from the sun and breaks down water molecule to produce ATP and NADPH. So light-dependent reaction, tinawag siyang light-dependent since it needs or it requires light energy from the sun. So this is the starting material. Then it also requires water molecule. So using these 2 materials, okay, it will be processed to produce ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate, and then another important molecule called NADPH. So light-dependent reaction happens inside the thylakoid. To be specific, in the thylakoid membrane. Yung phospholipid bilayer ng thylakoids po. Doon po nangyayari, specifically yung light-dependent reaction. So for light-dependent reaction, ang starting material natin is light energy. Take note, this is the requirement of this process. So requirement ni light-dependent reaction is light energy from the sun. So si light energy, magsa-strike siya sa isang protein called photosystem 2 na nasa thylakoids. So once na mag-enter yung light energy sa photosystem 2, meron pong electron sa loob ng photosystem 2. Once na mag-strike yung light energy sa electrons na yon, ma-excite yung electron or ma-activate, kumbaga. Next, so aside from the excitement of electrons, dito na po papasok si water. So water will enter the photosystem 2. So take note, ang input molecule natin for light-dependent reaction is water. Now, this water molecule will be split using the light energy through the process called photolysis. So paghihiwalayin yung dalawang hydrogen atom and oxygen atom using light energy. Sa loob po yun ng photosystem 2. Paghiwalay na, nahiwalay si dalawang hydrogen atom. So yung dalawang hydrogen atom magsistay siya sa loob ng thylakoids, while the oxygen atom will be released to the environment as the waste product. So yung oxygen po na ini-inhale natin ay waste product ng photosynthesis. To be specific, light-dependent reaction. Yung oxygen na ini-inhale natin, nanggagaling siya sa water molecule na pumapasok sa halaman. Now, babalik tayo din sa electron. So light energy will cause the excitement of electrons. Since na-activate sa electron, mag-move siya from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1. So sa photosystem 1, this is still a protein. So sir, bakit po una yung photosystem 2 kumpara kay photosystem 1? So yung arrangement nila, naka-base po yan dun sa order ng pagkaka-discover sa kanila. Nauna kasing na-discover si photosystem 2 kumpara kay photosystem 1. Kaya unang pinangalanan si 2, kaya nandito siya. Nasa unang part siya. So from photosystem 2, magja-jump sa electron kay photosystem 1. So through the process, mawawala ng energy si electron. Pero since may light energy pa rin, may excite uli si electron. Now, once na ma-excite sa electron, i-accept siya ng isang molecule na naghihintay na tinatawag na NADP. So sa NADP, electron acceptor molecule siya. So from photosystem 1, electron magja-jump kay NADP. Now, si NADP, okay, magbabind sa kanya yung dalawang hydrogen atom na nahiwalay from water molecule. So nung nag-combine, nung nag-attach na si dalawang hydrogen atom kay NADP, that will form one of the main products of light-dependent reaction, which is NADPH. So NADP, electron plus 2 hydrogen, mafo-form si NADPH. So NADPH stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate. So isa to sa main product ng light-dependent reaction. Plus ATP. So dalawang products po yung mapoproduce for light-dependent reaction. NADPH, then ATP, adenosine triphosphate.
Sir,
Yes po.
paano po ulit nakat yung hydrogen atoms mula sa tubig?
Using the light energy from the sun. To be honest, I'm not familiar with the whole process, but the general idea is mapaghihiwalay yung dalawang hydrogen dun sa oxygen using the light energy inside the photosystem.
Hindi, tama yan.
At isa pa po sir, saan po nanggaling po yung ATP?
Saan nanggaling yung ATP?
Just,
Yung sa paghihiwalay kasi ng,
just
I mean,
get first the,
mute ka muna lang, Renzo.
B,
Okay. So habang nagta-transfer kasi yung electron from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1, may mga hydrogen na nare-release dun sa thylakoid membrane. Now, since nagkakaroon ng accumulation ng hydrogen dun sa loob ng thylakoid membrane, nagkakaroon ng hydrogen gradient. Pag sinabing hydrogen gradient, mataas yung concentration ng hydrogen sa loob ng thylakoids kumpara dun sa labas. So this will result to concentration gradient, yung pag-move ng hydrogen mula sa loob papalabas. Now, merong protein na tinatawag na ATP synthase na katabi ni photosystem 1. Hindi ko na lang siya sinama. Pero si si ATP synthase protein siya. So pag dumaan kasi yung hydrogen ion sa ATP synthase, mapoproduce si ATP. Meron kasing tinatawag na ADP. So si ADP, standby molecule siya. ADP stands for adenosine diphosphate. So si ADP, nasa loob siya ng ATP synthase. Once na may dumaan na hydrogen sa ATP synthase, yung hydrogen na yun, mag-a-attach yun sa ADP. So ADP plus hydrogen, it will become adenosine triphosphate. So that is the process on how ADP is produced during light-dependent reaction. So hindi ko na lang talaga sinama yung ATP synthase to somehow simplify the process. Pero ganun yung process na. Napoproduce ATP sa ATP synthase through the help of hydrogen gradient. Nakuha po ba? Okay, so good. So that is the process of light-dependent reaction. So short recap tayo before we end. So light-dependent reaction, it is called light trapping phase since it traps photons or light energy from the sun. So again, its site of reaction is thylakoids, yung green pancake. To be specific, sa thylakoid membrane. Input molecule for light-dependent reaction is water. Ito yung masisplit through the process of photolysis. Then, requirement is light energy that comes from the sun. Then, for products, there are three: ATP, NADPH, and oxygen. ATP and NADPH is the main product or are the main products. Then, oxygen po yung waste product. So kung babalikan natin yung formula or yung equation for photosynthesis, yung light-dependent reaction ay may kita sa side na to. Yung 6 molecules of water with light energy and then 6 molecules of oxygen gas. So that is a summary of the first stage of photosynthesis. Since it's already 1:59, we will continue with light-independent reaction tomorrow. Next stage or reaction is the light-independent reaction. Take note, hindi magsa-start si light-independent kung hindi pa matatapos si light-dependent reaction. So our other term for light-independent reaction is Calvin cycle. So the goal of light-independent reaction is to assemble glucose molecules from carbon dioxide using the main products produced during the light-dependent reaction. So tinawag siyang light-independent since it doesn't need sunlight. Hindi siya nakadepend sa sunlight compared to light-dependent reaction. Now, ano yung magfu-fuel dun sa process ng light-independent reaction? Hindi siya naka-rely sa sunlight. Yung magsuserve as fuel or yung battery ng reaction nito is yung ATP and NADPH na product ni light-dependent reaction. So for this reaction, it will use the ATP molecule, NADPH, and carbon dioxide to produce glucose, which is the main goal of photosynthesis. So ito yung molecules na involved for light-independent reaction. This stage occurs in the colorless fluid that surrounds the thylakoid, and that is the stroma. Remember, sa loob po ng chloroplast, yung green pancakes, then napapalibutan nyo ng fluid. That fluid is the stroma. And dun sa fluid na yun, nangyayari yung light-independent reaction. So this is the process of the light-dependent reaction. So light-independent reaction will start with a molecule named RUBP. So RUBP stands for ribulose biphosphate. So this is the starting molecule. So carbon dioxide will enter the system. Take note, carbon dioxide will be the input molecule for light-independent reaction. So magsasama or magko-combine po si RUBP and carbon dioxide. So this will happen with the help of an enzyme called rubisco, not rebisco. Again, rubisco. Rubisco is an enzyme. So using this enzyme, magko-combine si CO2 and RuBP. So yung combination ng CO2 and RuBP will produce two molecules of 3-PGA. So 3-PGA stands for 3-phosphoglycerate. Again, 3-PGA stands for 3-phosphoglycerate. So from 1 RuBP to 2 3-PGA. Now, these two molecules of 3-phosphoglycerate, yung process ng combination ng RuBP and carbon dioxide to produce two molecules of 3-PGA is called carbon fixation stage. Ang light-independent reaction kasi is composed of 3 stages. So first stage is carbon fixation. Again, yung production ng 3-PGA. Going back to 3-PGA, so itong dalawang 3-PGA po ay imomodified pa ulit. So dito na papasok yung dalawang products ng light-dependent reaction, ATP and NADPH. So yung dalawang 3-PGA will be further modified and that process will be fueled by NADPH and ATP to produce a molecule, two molecules of G3P. So from RuBP, 3-PGA to G3P. So G3P stands, that's the short term, hindi ko nahanap yung full name eh. But G3P is a 3-carbon sugar. Okay, mas maliit siyang molecule compare kay RuBP. Now, one of the two, G3P, will combine to another G3P na galing sa previous or yung ready-made G3P na mula sa another reaction. So, yung modification ng 3-PGA to G3P is called the reduction stage. So, this is the second stage. Now, going back to G3P molecule, again, may mag-a-attach na another G3P na galing sa ibang reaction dun sa G3P. Now, yung combination ng dalawang G3P molecule will lead to the production of glucose. So, si glucose galing siya dun sa dalawang G3P. Now, yung combination ng dalawang G3P molecule is called the sugar creation stage. So, that is the third stage. Ayan yung 3 main stages. Now, sir, ano mangyayari dun sa isa na G3P? So yung isang G3P molecule will serve as a reserve molecule to become RuBP. Remember, RuBP is the starting molecule of light independent. So dapat merong laging standby molecule na RuBP, hindi dapat nauubusan. So yung dalawang mapuproduce na G3P, isa doon magiging reserve to become RuBP. So isa lang yung magko-combine sa another G3P to produce glucose. So the process of the combination or yung conversion ng G3P to RuBP is called regeneration stage. So this is the simplified summary of light-independent reaction. The process on how glucose, yung sugar na kinokonsume natin, is produced. So light-dependent reaction is called sugar building phase. So tinawag siyang sugar building phase kasi dito nga yung stage na po-produce si glucose. Remember, glucose is a simple sugar monomer, to be specific, monosaccharides of carbohydrates. Another term for light-dependent reaction is the dark reaction. Okay, I assume or baka narinig nyo na yung term na dark reaction. Now, most of the time, nagkakaroon ng confusion sa mga estudyante yung term na dark reaction. Kasi pag naririnig yung term na dark reaction, iniisip na, yung reaction na to nangyayari sa dilim or tuwing gabi. Pero hindi po ganon. Tinawag siyang dark reaction since this reaction doesn't need sunlight. Hindi siya nakadepend sa liwanag. So nangyayari pa rin po to at day. Sa liwanag, tinawag lang siyang dark reaction kasi nga hindi siya nakadepende sa sunlight. So remember that. So again, recap tayo. Site of reaction of light-dependent reaction ay sa stroma, yung colorless fluid. And the input molecule is carbon dioxide. The requirements are ATP and NADPH from the light-dependent reaction. And the only product is glucose. James.
Sir, di ba binanggit niyo po yung dark reaction, it doesn't require sunlight. Type po ba yung nakalagay na light-dependent reaction po sa taas na, sir?
Yes, sorry. That should be light-independent reaction. Thank you for raising.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. This is light-independent. Okay, tayo po. Light-independent reaction. Tapos na tayo sa dependent. Okay? So again, this is the summary. Stroma, carbon dioxide, ATP, NADPH, and then glucose. So kung babalikan natin yung formula or yung equation natin for photosynthesis, yung 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and sugar or yung glucose, ayan po yung part na nagre-refer sa light-dependent reaction. So the glucose molecule, the sugar, produced by plants through the process of photosynthesis will be consumed by animals. So hindi lang po plants ang makikinabang dito, tayo po as an animal. So tayo, i-consume natin si glucose. Photosynthesis makes glucose. We humans breaks the glucose. Pinaghirapan ni photosynthesis, i-break down natin si glucose using or through the process of cellular respiration. So cellular respiration na tayo. So cellular respiration, it is a process of cell catabolism in which cells turn food into usable energy in the form of ATP. When we say catabolism, it is a metabolic process or it is a process that breaks down molecule. Okay? So in simple terms, sa cellular respiration, i-break down niya or i-convert niya si glucose into usable energy, which is ATP. Remember, ATP is the energy currency of the cell. So hindi natin napapakinabangan si glucose as itself. To-convert siya to ATP. So cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria. So this is the reason why mitochondria is considered as the powerhouse of the cell. Since dito nga napoproduce yung energy currency ng katawan natin. Now, ang cellular respiration, pinaperform rin po ba ito ng plants? Or animals lang ang nagpa-perform nito? What do you think? Do they also need ATP?
Yes, sir.
That is correct. So kailangan rin po ng plants ng ATP. So meaning, cellular respiration both occurs in plants and animal. Okay? So performer si plants, kaya niya mag-photosynthesis, kaya niya mag-cellular respiration. Habang tayo, cellular respiration lang. Kasi nga, dependent tayo sa plant as a source of energy. Now, there are two types of cellular respiration, aerobic and anaerobic cellular respiration. So aerobic respiration is a type of respiration that involves oxygen. Gumagamit siya ng oxygen, yung binibreathe in natin. On the other hand, anaerobic cellular respiration doesn't need oxygen. So going back to aerobic respiration, there are 3 stages for aerobic respiration. That includes glycolysis, Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle, and electron transport chain. So anaerobic respiration again is a type of respiration that doesn't involve or doesn't need oxygen. So for this reaction, there are 2 stages, glycolysis and fermentation. So if you can observe, both type of respiration starts with glycolysis. So yung oxygen po, actually, during glycolysis, hindi pa siya ginagamit. Sa aerobic respiration, yung oxygen, magagamit siya mismo during the electron transport chain. So si glycolysis hindi niya pa ganun kailangan. Kaya pareha siyang nag-occur sa dalawang type. So glycolysis. So glycolysis, okay, occurs in the cytoplasm. By the way, RxN is our short term for reaction. So sa glycolysis, hindi pa siya directly magsa-start sa mitochondria, sa powerhouse of the cell. Sa labas muna siya, nasa cytoplasm, yung fluid part ng cell. Cytoplasm is the site of reaction. So the starting molecule, the requirement of glycolysis is glucose. So dyan na-derive yung name niya. So remember, glucose is a 6-carbon monosaccharide. Meron siyang 6 carbon dun sa structure niya. Now, in the process of glycolysis, glucose will be broken down. Mas papalitin pa siya. So with the help of an enzyme called hexokinase. Again, papalitin po si glucose, be-breakdown siya using hexokinase, enzyme, protein. So the breakdown of glucose will produce 2 molecules of pigal. From one glucose molecule, it will be broken down to produce 2 pigal. 2 pigal stands for glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So this pigal molecule has 3 carbon. So from 6 carbon molecule glucose to 2 3-carbon molecule, which is pigal. Now this pigal molecule will be further modified using an enzyme called pyruvate kinase. So the modification of pigal using pyruvate kinase will produce 2 molecules of a much usable form of sugar called pyruvate. So si pyruvate po, still it is a 3-carbon molecule. Now, remember, glucose is an organic molecule. So composed siya ng carbon and hydrogen. So yung ibang hydrogen na na-release during the breakdown of glucose will be accepted or kokolektahin siya ng isang molecule named NAD. NAD stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. So yung combination ng hydrogen and NAD molecule will produce NADH. So,
Sir,
yes, Lorenzo.
saan pa nanggagaling NAD?
Si NAD po ay lagi siyang present dun sa system. Lagi lang siyang nire-recycle. So NAD to NADH, mawawala si hydrogen, babalik siya as NAD. So para siyang standard molecule, madadagdagan, mababawasan, parang ATP lang. ATP, magiging ADP, madadagdagan, magiging ATP, babalik sa ADP. Nire-recycle lang sila ng nire-recycle. Okay, so NAD will be accepted or will collect hydrogen to produce NADH. To be specific, 2 molecules of NADH. Remember, napoproduce rin po sa NADH during light-dependent reaction. This process will also produce 2 molecules of ATP. So yung tatlong stage ng aerobic respiration, nagpo-produce sila ng ATP kada stage. Nagva-vary lang yung number. So all in all, merong 3 products si glycolysis, 2 molecules of pyruvate, 2 molecules of NADH, and 2 molecules of ATP. Next stage after glycolysis is the Krebs cycle. Take note, hindi magsa-start si Krebs cycle kung hindi pa natatapos si glycolysis. So the site of reaction of Krebs cycle is mitochondria. So the starting molecule of Krebs cycle is pyruvate. Remember, sa glycolysis, nasa cytoplasm. So ita-transfer si pyruvate papasok ng mitochondria. So the starting molecule again is pyruvate. Now, maliit na molecule na si pyruvate kasi pinaliit na siya from glucose. Pero mas papaliitin pa si pyruvate. Iko-convert siya using an enzyme again. So may involvement dito ng maraming enzyme. So pyruvate will be converted using an enzyme to produce a molecule called acetyl molecule. So acetyl molecule is a 2-carbon molecule from 3 to 2 carbon. Pabawas ng pabawas yung number ng carbon. Now, this acetyl molecule will be combined in an enzyme called coenzyme CoA. So acetyl plus coenzyme CoA. So yung combination ni coenzyme CoA and acetyl molecule will produce acetyl CoA. So si acetyl CoA, mas maliit na siyang molecule. So even though maliit na molecule si acetyl CoA, papaliitin pa siya. So acetyl CoA will be stripped off. So pag-iiwa-hiwalayin po yung components ni acetyl CoA. Some of the electrons and hydrogen of acetyl CoA will be collected by a molecule named NAD+. This will produce NADH. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. Diba, tinanong ni Lorenzo kanina, saan galing sa NAD, lagi siyang standby molecule. Lagi lang siyang nagko-collect ng hydrogen to produce NADH. So some of the electrons and hydrogen will be collected by NAD+ to produce NADH. Another set of electrons and hydrogen from acetyl CoA will be accepted or collected by another molecule named FAD+. So FAD stands for, what's that name? Flavin adenine dinucleotide. Flavin adenine dinucleotide. So that is the name for FAD. So combination of electron, hydrogen, and FAD+ will produce FADH. Take note, NADH and FADH, ang function nila is electron carrier. Tagadala lang sila ng electron. Kasi mamaya, ipapasa nila yung electrons na kinokollect nila. So for now, just remember, NADH and FADH are electron carrier. Now, this process will produce another 2 molecules of ATP and then carbon dioxide. So yung carbon dioxide na waste product po natin, na in-exhale natin, ay nanggagaling sa Krebs cycle. So all in all, there are 4 products of Krebs cycle: NADH, FADH, ATP molecule, and then carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, since it's a waste product, it will be released to the environment as we breathe out. Next stage is electron transport chain. So ETC, for short, occurs in the inner membrane of mitochondria. So yung plasma membrane, kumbaga, it is composed of phospholipid bilayer pa rin naman. So yung membrane ng mitochondria. So the starting molecule for electron transport chain is NADH and FADH na na-produce during Krebs cycle. Remember, nabanggit ko kanina, electron carrier lang sila. Ipapasa nila yung electrons na dala-dala nila. So dito na nila ipapasa yung electron. So yung dalawang electrons na dala-dala ni FADH and NADH ay ipapasa nila sa isang protein na nasa membrane ng mitochondria. To be specific, there are 4 proteins. So na-represent yan yung different unidentified shape dito. So first protein na magre-receive ng electron is yung color orange na protein. So far wala akong nahanap na name niya. Now yung acceptance ng dalawang electrons ng protein na to will lead to the release of hydrogen. So magre-release ng hydrogen in the extracellular membrane of the mitochondria. So from first protein, ipapasa uli sa electron sa second protein, yung color red. Same, nung pagka-receive ng electron, yung second protein, magre-release uli ng hydrogen sa labas ng mitochondria. Same with the third protein. Release ng hydrogen. Now, yung tuloy-tuloy na release ng hydrogen sa extracellular area ng mitochondria will make a proton gradient. Meaning, may concentration ng hydrogen sa labas. Kasi nga maraming na-produce, maraming na-release, nagkaroon ng concentration gradient. Kung matatandaan, concentration gradient ay yan yung pagkakaiba ng concentration ng molecule sa isang area. So, mas mataas sa labas compare sa loob. Now, dito na po papasok si oxygen. Dito na magagamit si oxygen. So, isa lang ang function ni oxygen dito as the final electron acceptor. Again, the role of oxygen in aerobic respiration, to be specific, ETC, is the final electron acceptor. So siya yung pinakalas. Actually, hindi nga siya talaga yung pinakalas. Tinawag siyang final electron acceptor, pero based on my understanding, hindi siya yung pinakalas. Kasi ipapasa niya pa yung dalawang electrons na yan sa last protein called ATP synthase. So siguro tanggalin natin yung word na final electron acceptor. Tawagin lang natin siyang electron acceptor. Kasi nga ipapasa niya pa uli yung electron. Isa-send niya yon sa another protein named ATP synthase. So final destination electron ay kay ATP synthase. Now, yung acceptance ng ATP synthase ng dalawang electron will cause the opening of ATP synthase. Mag-open siya. So yung pag-open ATP synthase will provide a channel for the hydrogen na nasa labas. So mag-open po sa ATP synthase, so somehow makakapasok po yung ibang hydrogen sa loob ng mitochondria.
Sir,
Hindi pre, malay mo sa... May ganun
paano
Yes,
po
sir.
mag-open?
Para siyang protein channel, kung matatandaan dun sa lesson number 2 natin, yung attachment ng electron somehow will cause a chemical reaction. Mag-open siya literally. Magkakaroon ng hole. Parang ganun siya. Ayun yung ibig sabihin ng pag-open ng ATP synthase. Magpo-provide ng channel. Ayun po siya. So magpo-provide siya ng channel for the hydrogen na nasa labas. So may mga papasok pong hydrogen sa loob ng mitochondria. Now, balikan natin yung oxygen. So si oxygen, nagawa niya na yung role niya, electron acceptor. So marirelease po si oxygen from the membrane papunta sa loob. By the way, yung pag-pass through ng electron sa ATP synthase will cause for the production of 32 molecules of ATP. To be honest, I'm not familiar kung paano na-produce ni ATP synthase yung 32, but most of the book sinasabi na 32 molecules ng ATP yung mapuproduce as the hydrogen pass through the ATP synthase. So, among the 3 stage of aerobic respiration, kay ETC or si ETC yung pinakamaraming ATP na mapuproduce. Siya yung major producer. Okay, balik tayo dun sa oxygen. So si oxygen po marirelease siya sa loob ng mitochondria. Now, may oxygen, may hydrogen sa loob ng mitochondria. 2 of the hydrogen atoms na nakapasok will attach to this oxygen. Now, ano yung molecule na mafo-form when 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom combine?
Water po.
Water, H2O. So yung attachment ni 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen atom will produce water molecule. So si water molecule, this will be a waste product na marirelease sa outside environment. So some of the sweat na nare-release natin, waste product siya ng electron transport chain. So yung mga waste product po natin, majority nang gagaling siya sa cellular respiration. Okay, so this is how ATP is produced during cellular respiration. To be specific, aerobic respiration. Gamit ng oxygen or with the involvement of oxygen. Now, paano naman sir nangyayari yung anaerobic respiration? Yung walang involvement ng oxygen. Pag nag-workout po tayo, when we're doing or we're performing strenuous activity or exercise, yung sobrang nakakapagod na exercise, bumibilis po yung consumption natin ng oxygen. So syempre, mabilis tayong gumagalaw, mas mabilis natin nakukonsume yung ATP and oxygen. Kaya tayo hinihingal para makapag-cope up dun sa yung sa consumption. Now, during this time, somehow nagkakaroon ng pagkukulang sa supply ng oxygen sa ibang parte ng katawan natin. For example, nagja-jogging tayo. Ano ba yung organ na gamit? Muscle. So mabilis na nagko-consume ng oxygen and ATP si muscle. So in this area, nagkakaroon ng pagkukulang sa supply. So pag nangyayari po yung ganitong pagkakataon, that's the time na magsuswitch yung katawan natin from aerobic to anaerobic respiration. Yung mga times na nagkukulang sa supply, magsuswitch yung katawan natin from aerobic to anaerobic respiration. Kanina nabanggit ko, both aerobic and aerobic respiration starts with glycolysis. So magsa-start sa anaerobic sa glycolysis. Actually, same siya ng process with aerobic respiration. So still sa cytoplasm po mangyayari, pero wala nang palitan ng site of reaction. Buong process ng anaerobic respiration ay mangyayari po sa cytoplasm. Again, glycolysis will start with glucose molecule, then it will be broken down to pigal, then it will be further modified to produce 2 molecules of pyruvate. Together with 2 molecules of pyruvate, NADH will be produced and then ATP. Now, yung dalawang ATP molecules po na napuproduce ni glycolysis, ayan lang yung amount ng ATP na mapuproduce throughout the process of anaerobic respiration. Compare sa 32, actually 38, kung pagsasamahin natin yung dalawa, dun sa glycolysis, Krebs cycle, pati dun sa ETC. Sobrang laki ng difference. So dalawa lang yung mapuproduce throughout the process of anaerobic respiration. So after glycolysis, ang next stage for anaerobic respiration is lactic acid fermentation. Still, nangyayari po ito sa cytoplasm. So yung pyruvate po na product ni glycolysis ay i-convert sa lactic acid. So from pyruvate, papalitin pa siya, i-modified siya to produce lactic acid. So itong lactic acid po, ini-store po ng katawan natin to sa liver. Kasi sa liver, i-convert to pabalik sa pyruvate. Pyruvate po, remember, ito yung starting molecule ng Krebs cycle. So pag nagkaroon kasi ng enough supply ulit ng oxygen dun sa muscle cell natin, i-release yan ng liver natin para mag-start yung aerobic respiration starting with Krebs cycle. So iniipon yung lactic acid para meron tayong stock ng pyruvate kung kailangan na mauli mag-switch sa aerobic respiration. Now, hindi po maganda sa katawan natin, to be specific sa muscle natin, yung maraming lactic acid. Habang mas tumatagal kasi yung anaerobic respiration na piniperform sa muscle cell natin, nagkakaroon ng build-up ng lactic acid. Now, na-experience nyo na po bang mag-workout ng sobrang tagal? For example, nag-jogging kayo biglaan ng sobrang tagal. May naka-experience ba nun? Nung nagawa niyo yun, ano yung reaction ng katawan ninyo? Ano yung mga naramdaman ninyo? Aside sa napagod. May nakaranas ba ng muscle cramps? Wala. Swerte nyo naman. Kasi worst case scenario, magkakaroon ng muscle cramps. Familiar ba kayo sa muscle cramps? Yung parang maninigas yung muscle ninyo in a certain part of your body na mapapapikit ka na lang sa sakit. That is muscle cramps. Now, bakit po nangyayari yung muscle cramps? Kasi nagkakaroon ng build-up ng lactic acid dun sa muscle po natin. So, pag na-experience nyo yung muscle cramp, you can say or pwede kayong mag-conclude na nag-undergo ng anaerobic cellular respiration yung muscle cells po ninyo. Now, ang anaerobic respiration, hindi siya ganun katagal naglalast. Kasi di ba nagkaroon tayo ng muscle cramps, mapapatigil tayo. So pag tumigil tayo, somehow babagal yung paghinga natin, magkakaroon ng enough supply ng oxygen yung katawan natin. So pag na-restore yung enough supply ng oxygen, magsuswitch na from anaerobic to aerobic respiration yung katawan natin. Kaya huhupa na yung muscle cramps kasi nga, nare-resupply na. Yung lactic acid na ko-convert na to pyruvate. Nagsusstart na ulit si Krebs cycle. So that's how anaerobic respiration works. So we can summarize the process of cellular respiration using an equation. So again, our starting molecule here is glucose, then 6 molecules of oxygen gas. So these 2 molecules will serve as the reactants or input for this process. Then these 2 molecules will be processed to produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, water, and then the main goal, ATP. So these 3 molecules are the products or the output of cellular respiration. Now, mukha bang familiar yung equation ni cellular respiration? Let's compare the equation of cellular respiration to photosynthesis. Now, observe closely. Ano yung pwede nyong ma-conclude somehow or na-observe nyo with these 2 given equation?
Sir, cyclical po sila.
I'm sorry, Lorenzo, paulit.
Sir, cyclical po, sir.
What do you mean by cyclical?
So, sir, since yung prerequisite para sa photosynthesis ay yung product of respiration. Respiration. Tapos, sir, yung prerequisite ng cellular respiration ay yung product ng photosynthesis. Pwede sila mag-cycle lang, sir.
Okay, that is correct. Very good. Okay, so tama po yun. If you can observe, the reactants or the input of photosynthesis are the products of cellular respiration. And then the products of photosynthesis are the reactants or input of cellular respiration. So hindi po siya sinadya, sadyang nagkataon lang na ganyan yung equation niya and talaga namang connected sila. Diba? Somehow amazing lang yung process. Kasi connected sila and in terms of the summary equation, connected rin po sila. Balikan natin yung photosynthesis. Let's now summarize the process of photosynthesis by answering or completing this concept map. So, first part tayo, mag-start tayo from left to right. So, the starting molecule natin or starting requirement natin is light. So, when there's a need of light, anong type of reaction kaya to? What is the answer for number 1? Since there's a need for light, what type of reaction is this? Anong type of reaction sa photosynthesis yung kailangan ng light?
Sir, light-dependent reaction po.
Light-dependent reaction, that is correct. And what is the site of reaction of light-dependent reaction? Thylakoids. Tama po yan. Now, number 3, what is the input molecule of light-dependent reaction?
Water, sir.
Water. How many molecules? How many molecules of water? Based dun sa equation kanina.
Sir, 6 po.
6. And then, so what is the waste product of light-dependent reaction?
Oxygen po, sir.
Oxygen, that is correct. How many molecules of oxygen that will be released? How many molecules? Balikan yung equation.
6 po, sir.
6 pa rin. Okay, next, for 7 and 8, what are the two products of light-dependent reaction?
ATP po.
ATP is one. Aside from ATP,
Glucose.
and
NADPH.
NADPH. So these two will be used to fuel the process or the reaction of light-independent reaction. Again, what is the site of light-independent reaction? It occurs in the stroma. Then what is the input molecule of light-independent reaction?
Carbon dioxide po.
Carbon dioxide. How many molecules? How many molecules of carbon dioxide? Balik din sa formula. I mean sa equation.
Sir, 6 molecules po.
6. Tama. Then, final product or the main product is glucose. So that is a summary of photosynthesis, including light-dependent and light-independent reaction. Now, cellular respiration naman tayo. Let's compare and contrast the two types, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. We still have 4 minutes. I think we can finish this one. What do you think for the similarity? What do you think are the similarity of aerobic and anaerobic respiration?
Sir, glycosis.
That is correct. They both start with glycolysis. They both start with glycolysis. Aside from that,
Sir, they both produce ATP.
that is also correct. They both produce ATP. Magkaiba lang yung number. Both produces ATP, both starts with glycolysis. Ano pa? Since they both starts with glycolysis, ano yung magiging similarity nila doon? Since they both starts with glycolysis, meaning they both requires glucose. That is correct. And since they produces ATP, aside from ATP, they also produces what? Both of them, aside from ATP.
Sir, NADH rin po.
NADPH. They both produces NADPH. So they both produces ATP, NADPH. They both starts with glycolysis, and since they both starts with glycolysis, they both requires glucose. Okay, so it's already 1:58. Bukas na lang natin to ituloy. Let's finish this part, then yung next slide before you start with CP.